Hello, I'm Matt Davy Bones, and in this video I want to talk about settling on resources. Specifically, I wasn't really much of a 4X player, but it was during Civ 5 when I got into these types of games. I know I played Civ 4 sometime, I don't even remember owning it, but it doesn't matter. But when the mechanics started to click for me and I was actually able to play games and know what I was doing, I still kept running into small situations that I didn't fully understand, like if to settle on a resource or not. Like, damn, this cattle looks good to find my city on. So I searched the forums and I kept seeing conflicting reasons why you should or you shouldn't. See, the strategy for some was to find a good place to settle, then settle on the worst tile to take advantage of the 2 food, 1 production city yield that I talked about in my previous video. That way you wouldn't occupy a potential spot that could be improved upon by a worker. The other strategy was to settle on a resource with the highest yield in your settling area. That way you could get an early boost in growth or production and not spend workers' turns on improving that tile. However, in Civ 5, you could directly affect tiles internally within your city just by constructing certain buildings. And these buildings affected tiles worked on. Not improved, but just by having a citizen on that tile, you'd gain the effects. So you could settle on a resource with not that much potential yield drop off. So with only 3 exceptions, there's nothing else in Civ 6 that affects a tile directly, besides a builder. That's universal to all civilizations. Tech advancements, wonders, Pantheon bonuses, civics, governments and policies affect globally or just a single city. Everything else affects only tiles that have a builder's improvement on them. From here on out, I'm going to be giving examples of why it might not be a good idea to settle on resources, and talk about those 3 exceptions that I mentioned earlier when they become appropriate. Now, here for example, we have the Hui Teo Kali. Let's pretend I said it right. It gives +1 of food and +1 of production for each lake tile in your empire. Now, what that does not mean is your lake tiles aren't going to be yielding +1 to their food and +1 to their production. What that means is for every lake tile within your borders, they're going to give +1 food and +1 to production globally. So it doesn't directly affect a tile. And one of those 3 exceptions that I was talking about is the Petra. +2 to food, +2 to gold, and +1 to production on all desert tiles. So this wonder directly affects the tiles themselves. So if you have the ability to make this, it might make the sheep on a desert hill a little bit more appealing to just go ahead and settle on it without that much of a yield loss. So here's a pretty good example. Now we could settle our settlers right here and have this 2 food, 1 production city tile, and then have a citizen work on the citrus for that 4 food. Or we could settle on the 4 food and have a 4 food, 1 production city tile, and then have that citizen work on this stone for that extra production, so that we could have just an early boost. Alright, I had to do my arts and crafts, but here's an example why it might not be a good idea to settle on citrus. So I broke it down like this, by tile by tile. In the end, your city on citrus is going to have 4 food and that's it. So here's when you don't settle on citrus and have a builder build a plantation on it with the irrigation tech. In the end, you're going to get 4 food with the potential of it being 5, 1 gold with the potential of it being 2, and everything else. And this isn't even taking into consideration the bonus you could get from pantheons and the like. Alright, let's look at another example that's a little bit more tricky. Now, this tile itself is what I will call a very sexy banana location. Now, by itself, without considering the tiles around it, this looks initially like a good tile to settle a city on. So here's what you think you will get if you put your city on the tile. 3 food and 2 production. But no, what you're actually doing is tearing down all the trees and all the bananas are falling on the floor, and you're sitting on top of the bananas, and all you get is 2 food and 2 production. So yeah, a rainforest gives 1 to food, banana gives 1 to food, but if you build on top of the rainforest, you destroy the rainforest, keep the banana, and so at the end of the day, do not build on top of a banana is no good. Speaking of rainforests, another one of these exceptions is the Chichen Itza. It's a wonder that gives 2 culture and 1 production for each rainforest tile in the city. Now this wonder directly affects the tile itself. However, in the context of settling, it doesn't quite work. Nonetheless, it does affect the tile. So the final thing that I want to talk about is rice and wheat. Now by themselves they're nothing special, they only have 1 food. But this is the type of resource that could quickly add up. Right now this rice is a 3 food tile, and if I use my builders to make a farm, it's going to be a 4 food tile. And this leads me to the last exception, which is a watermill. This is the only construction that you can make that directly affects a tile. Constructing this can make that rice a 5 food yielding tile, which is something you should consider on whether to settle on it, because once you construct that mill, you are gonna get those bonuses. Now, it's never gonna be a 5 food tile, like if you would not settle on it, but again, it is something to consider. So that was a quick rundown, and I like to keep these things quick and snappy. But in summary, Civ 6, unlike Civ 5, leans towards more don't settle on resources. But at the end, it's situational. Do what you have to do to win. Anyways, if you liked the video, consider dropping a like and maybe subscribe. It really helps out a lot. And in my wild styling pose, be excellent to one another, and see you later.